So we are discussing 3rd canto, 7th chapter. So we are discussing summary of 7th chapter, 3rd canto. I think that's the topic there. So the chapter's name is Further Inquiries by Vidura. That's the chapter's name. And can you mute yourself, ISKCON Charlotte? If you can mute, then that's good. Otherwise, it's like little. Okay, thank you. So Vidura ji and Maitreya, they met, and we know that they met in 𝗪𝗲𝗪, and they had a discussion there. And Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya. That's the whole point there. And he is asking many questions from Maitreya. Maitreya Muni is responding. But one thing we have to remember that Vidura already knows all these answers, because Vidura, he's a pure devotee of Lord Krishna. He already knows these answers, but still he's inquiring from Maitreya Muni, because Maitreya Rishi, he just recently had darshan of Lord Krishna, and he heard the discussions, some partial discussions between Lord Krishna and Uddhava. So he was there and he heard, and he's also a very advanced devotee, and of course he is more aged than Vidura. So Vidura ji, out of etiquettes and also because he had darshan of Lord Krishna, Vidura is inquiring from Maitreya some questions which already he understands the answers, but Maitreya, he is also answering Vidura. He's answering Vidura that yes, these are the answers. Maitreya Muni also knows Vidura understands all these things, but nevertheless he understands that it's duty to answer the questions, and not just duty, but actually Maitreya is actually relishing to answer these questions. For devotees, discussions of Krishna, that is their life and soul. So sometimes we don't really discuss to know things. We discuss to relish things. That's also a different thing. Just like Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and 𝗪𝗲𝗪𝗀 Damodar, they were discussing, or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramanand Rai, they were question answers. So they were discussing. कैसे रखूँ मैं, ये तो को देख नहीं पा रहा मैं. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Ramanand Rai, they were discussing. Ramanand Rai knew everything, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu knew, but nevertheless Mahaprabhu was asking question and Ramanand Rai is answering question. Doesn't Mahaprabhu know things? He knows. But then why is asking questions from Ramanand Rai? Just to relish. So this discussion between Vidura and Maitreya is to relish. And another point we have to understand that these discussions never become boring. It's not that Vidura knows everything and Vidura is asking. Vidura is asking very basic questions here. Very basic questions. Not just basic, but foundational questions. But Maitreya is answering, and they both are enjoying these discussions. So it's not that we become bored, and so just like many devotees said to Prabhupada, you are. So not many devotees. I think one devotee said to Prabhupada, can you tell something deeper or higher thing? You're always talking about body and soul. You're not your soul. You're not this body, and material world is useless. Some deeper thing. Well, Prabhupada said, first realize this, and then we'll go deeper. That's what he said. But you see, even after 25 years, or myself, or maybe after 40 years, Maharaj, or maybe Maitreya Muni, what, how many thousands of years of age, even after that he is discussing the foundational question. Same question Vidura is asking. Why living entity is in ignorance? Simple question. And the answer Maitreya gave was because he is identifying with his body. Simple answer. Simple question. And they are so experienced people and so long time they have been living, and you're discussing the same question. Why? Because these are the questions which we relish as devotees. And if you don't relish these things, then there's a problem in your devotion. I mean to say, it's not that we don't want to discuss pastimes of Krishna. That's also very relishing, and we don't want to discuss some deeper philosophy. We want to discuss, but if those points are relishable, these points are equally relishable. That's my whole point there. So Vidura inquires from Maitreya. One another point we have to remember here is that Maitreya Muni, he actually इसको यहाँ रख लूँ मैं, क्या फ़ायदा क्या है? Yeah, I'll just keep it here. उनको देखना उनको है और okay. You can hear me, all of you?
There's some background noise. Something is being played.
No, played with music. Yeah. Actually, that's Gurudwara.
Oh, okay. No problem. Yeah.
No, but that's disturbing or what?
No, it's not. But there's some in the background. It is there, but that's fine. It's not that much.
Fan is also moving. So is this a voice of fan or what? No.
No.
Okay, fine. No. So another point we should remember is that Maitreya Muni, he is not exactly that caliber of pure devotee as Vidura himself, and even gopis. Because Srila Prabhupada said that when Krishna was departing, Maitreya was hiding behind the tree and he was seeing Krishna, but he couldn't really meet him because there was lack of devotion somewhere. He's a pure devotee, but he's not same standard of pure devotee as Uddhava or gopis. But nevertheless, his answers, if you hear, his answers are recorded in Srimad Bhagavatam. But at the same time, he's not at the same level as Uddhava. You see the point there. He's not even at the same level as Vidura. Vidura is more advanced than Maitreya. We know that. So what do we understand by this? Questions are same, answers are same, but the depth of realizations of different devotees are different. That's very important to understand. Although there's a discussion between Vidura and Maitreya, and both are having questions and answers, but the depth of realization of Vidura is different, and the depth of realization of Maitreya is different. Although Maitreya is acting as a guru, but in this case, disciple is more advanced than the guru. So that's very interesting. क्या हो रहा है? So the whole point was that we all are there in this forum now. I am telling you something and you are hearing me something. इसको बंद करो तो. I am telling you something and you are fan and here you are hearing something, but the realizations of all of us are different, very different. So we might be reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. I might be telling you or explaining you something, but we all have a different depth of realizations, and that is a difference between one devotee and another devotee. We might be sitting in the same room on the same bench, but we might be miles apart in advancement of devotion. That's what is happening here within Vidura and Maitreya. But Srimad Bhagavatam wants to inform us another point, that no matter at what level of advancement you are, the questions are the same and the answers are the same. That's the whole point there. The set of questions and set of answers do not change. The depth changes. That's what matters. Srila Prabhupada also used to say, I am not this body. He used to discuss on this topic. We are also hearing the same thing, we are discussing the same thing, but the depth matters. So we all have seen a pond. We have seen a pond. And a pond is a small body of water. But it depends, how deep is a pond? Two ponds can appear same externally, length and breadth dimension. But the depth can be very different of both of them. So that is what makes Kanishth, Madhyam and Uttam different. And that is what makes one advanced devotee. So that is very nice. So if you read this chapter, the questions which Vidura is asking, these are the questions which we have to solve. And in fact, this 7th chapter, Vidura is raising so many questions. Questions about spirituality, questions about religion, both. He is raising both questions, spirituality and religion. He's talking about dharma, he's talking about varnashrama. He's asking what is varnashrama dharma. He's talking how did creation take place. He's asking what is the nature of Supreme Lord, why living entities ignorance, how to get out of ignorance. So if Vidura is trying to inquire from Maitreya all the aspects of life, spiritual aspect of human life, religious aspect of human life, both. And that is what Vidura is trying to convey to us. If you want to become a human, you need both aspects of life, not just spiritual dimension, but also religious dimension. By religion, here I don't mean Hindu, Christian or most Islamic religion, but here by religion I mean dharma, the sense of dharma we need. And then we become a human. Otherwise, without religion, only spirituality is, let's say, spirituality without religion is actually, what can I say? So it's actually like a animal doing some meditation. That's what is spirituality without religion. And religion without spirituality is a person without soul, is a dead man. It's simply a framework, that's all, without a soul. So this is what is important in this chapter, we have to understand. Okay, so let's go in this chapter. In this chapter, there are I think 42 verses there. And Vidura, he asks three questions which are pertaining to spirituality, and all other questions are pertaining to religion. And Maitreya answers these three questions, and all of the questions are answered in the rest of the chapter, the rest of the 3rd canto discussions. But interesting thing is, these three questions are so foundational, and the answer is so brief, because first 7 verses are 3 questions of Vidura, and then from 8 to 19th verse is the answer of Maitreya Muni. But the answer is so brief that one thinks that one will be surprised and bewildered. What kind of answer is this? So let me tell you the 3 questions. The 3 questions are here. This is the second verse talks about the first question of Vidura. These 3 questions are spiritual questions. And 3rd canto 7th chapter 2nd verse is the first question of Vidura. The first question is, since Supreme Personality of Godhead is complete, spiritual, whole and unchangeable, how is he connected with material modes of nature and their activities? If this is his pastime, how do activities of unchangeable take place, exhibit qualities without modes of nature? The question he's asking is, if God is complete and beyond modes, how does he do activities in this material world, which is actually full of modes of material nature, being unaffected by it? That's the whole question there. Because there are certain set of people like Mayavadis and Karmakandis. They say even when he comes in this realm of Maya and the modes, he also becomes affected by it. But Krishna comes, Ram comes, he takes many incarnations, but he is completely unaffected. The question Vidura is asking, how is this possible? Now, the answer to this question will help us first to appreciate the Supreme Person. To appreciate the Supreme Person. Because we become affected, but he doesn't become affected. Am I right? And the second, which actually Sridhar Swami comments in the commentary of Bhagavad Gita, that verse is there about super soul, upadrishtanu mantacha. There, Sridhar Swami comments that if you understand, if you try to even appreciate how the Supreme Lord, he comes in this material world, the world of Maya, and becomes and is completely unaffected by Maya. If you understand this, the secret, and then you can also become unaffected by Maya. And you can become, Jivan Mukta, liberated in this material world. So it's almost like you enter so it's almost like you dive in an ocean, in the water, and then you are completely dry. Is it possible? It's not possible. You dive into a swimming pool and then you come out completely dry without being wet. It's impossible. But Krishna is doing the same thing. He's diving into an ocean of Maya, but he's completely unaffected by it. So what's the secret? Vidur wants to ask. So very, very deep and very mysterious question. So, and the next question Vidur asks is about living entities. And he says here, in the 5th verse, he asks about question about living entity. He says, the pure soul is pure consciousness and is never out of consciousness, either due to circumstance, time, situation, dreams or other causes. How then does he become engaged in nescience? This is about soul. Now, it's the same question. Even our spirit soul is pure and separate from body, mind, intelligence, ego. We know that. But Vidur is asking, how does living entity becomes attached and being affected by this mind, body and soul? If we are not this, then we should not be affected by this. But we are affected by this. How is it possible? So that's another question. If I am not this shirt, then I should not be affected. What happens to this shirt? But we are getting affected. So something hits our hand, we feel pain. Something happens in our life, we feel distressed. Some problems come, we become stressed. But why? We are not this body, we are not this mind. But why does it happen? That's next question of Vidur. And the third question of Vidur is, now this is very important, this is a nice question. 6th verse, he asks, the Lord is situated in every living being's heart. Why then do living entities' activities result in misfortune and misery? He says, if the Lord is staying in the heart of every living entity as Paramatma, why does living entity has to undergo miseries and evil? Because Krishna is there in our heart. Why is not guiding us? If he is there with us, how can we affected? We can be affected by miseries. The source of happiness is there is in our heart with us. Then how can we become miserable? That's the third question. Very nice questions, and Maitreya is answering them, but in very brief, but to the point. That's called realization. And a person who is not realized, he'll keep on speaking, but he'll not be able to explain. So if you ask a question, he will give you 1 hour lecture and he will not understand anything. A person who is realized, like Srila Prabhupada, you ask a question and one answer comes and convinced. That's called realization. So Maitreya, he gives, he just from 7th verse to I think 18th verse, just in some 10 verses he gives answer to Vidur, to all these 3 questions. And from where he begins, he says, so Maitreya says in 9th verse, he says, now this is important, he says, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that God, Supreme Brahman, is overcome by illusion or Maya. At the same time, they maintain he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Maitreya Muni is directly, first of all, refuting Mayavad. Because Mayavadi says when Supreme Lord comes, he becomes affected by Maya. But he says this is nonsense, because they also accept that Supreme Brahman is out of Maya. Am I right? Maya is sheltered under Supreme Brahman. But when he comes when he comes in Maya, he becomes affected. He says this is nonsense. Either you say he's affected, or you say he's unaffected. You can't say both. He's unaffected, but when he comes in Maya, he's affected. This is nonsense. So he says, I don't want to accept this theory, first of all. So the next he starts answer. He says, 10th verse, living entity is in distress regarding his self-entity. He has no factual background, like a man who dreams that he sees his head cut off. So he starts answering this question, why living entity is, actually answers all the three questions in one verse, in 10th verse, all three questions. First question was, Supreme Lord is not affected, how does it happen? So that he has answered in the previous verse, first of all. He says, well, he's not affected, and that's true. People who say he becomes affected, they are fools. It's against logic. It's illogical to say that Supreme Lord is affected when he comes in this material world. That's illogical, because the definition of Supreme Lord is, he is beyond illusion. What kind of God is God who is affected by his own deluding energy? That's crazy, am I right? That's nonsense. So, and the next question was, how spirit soul, although spirit soul knows that I am not body, I am not, although we are not all this, but we are affected by this. Vidura answers this question in 10th verse. He says, well, you see in dreams sometimes, this is a very famous example in Upanishads. In dreams, so Maitreya is answering, in dreams we sometimes see our head is cut off. I don't know whether you have seen or not, but sometimes we see our head is cut off. But the question is, how can we see our own head cut off? How does it happen? It can't happen. Sometimes it happens in our dreams. Sometimes somebody stabs us and we see ourselves dying. We are dying. Or so sometimes in dreams we see I'm drowning and I'm dying, But then how does it happen? We are seeing ourselves dying? It's crazy, isn't it? But that is what is Vidura is saying. This is what is conditioned life. We are dreaming. We are thinking I'm getting affected by bodily pain, I'm getting affected by mental disturbance. It's like a dream. But nothing is happening to us. But because we are identifying, we are getting disturbed. That is the next answer of. The answer is why living entity is getting affected due to self-identification. That's the answer here. Due to identification with all these layers, what we are in, this body, mind, intelligence, society. The day we stop identifying with all these things, and the more, and the less we identify with all these things, the more we will be unaffected by them. That's the next answer. And the third answer is, actually this is, so Maitreya Muni is giving another example. This is also one example in Upanishads. Just like if we have a water body and a moon is reflected in the water body. Suppose if you have a tub, it's a water, and if you keep it outside, so there will be reflection of moon in the tub. Now if suppose the water is moving, the reflection of moon will also be moving. Am I right? It will also move. But actually originally moon is not moving. The reflection is moving. Similarly, actually the soul is not affected by body, mind, intelligence. But because we are identifying with body, mind, intelligence, we are getting affected. That's the whole point there. So this is another question, another answer. And then he says here, 12th verse, Maitreya Muni is answering the third question. Why, if super soul is there in the heart, still the living entity is feeling miserable and misfortune? He answers in 12th verse, but that misconception of self-identity can be diminished gradually by mercy of Vasudeva through the process of devotional service to Lord in the mood of detachment. So he says, yes, super soul is there in your heart, but you don't have a connection with him. So obviously you will feel miserable. So a strong man, so if somebody comes to hit you and a very strong man is sitting nearby, but if you don't have any friendship or any relationship with him, why he will help you? He'll just be watching you, what's happening, that's all. So similarly, Paramatma is there, but he is watching. Why? Because you are watching something else. You are not interested in relationship with him. So he is not helping you, so you are feeling miserable. That's the whole point there. This is the third answer to third question. Only by without doing devotional service, we don't have relationship with Supreme Lord. Although proximity with Super Soul doesn't matter. That's the whole point. He is right there within our heart. He is very near to us than anybody else. But that doesn't matter. What matters is relationship with Supreme Lord.
Can I join?
What's happening? So Supreme Lord can be very far away, but if we have a relationship with him, he is very near to us. Or he can be very near to us in form of Super Soul, but if we don't have a relationship with him, we are miles far apart from him. That's the whole idea. That can be accomplished by devotional service. This is the third answer to the third question. And then this finishes, and then Vidura asks many other questions. Vidura is then asking another set of questions. These are spiritual questions, 3, and answers to it. And then rest of the chapter, Vidura is asking another questions which are actually religious questions about religion, about creation. He's asking all those questions, and we know third canto describes about creation and about religion, details, third, fourth cantos like that. But you see, spiritual questions, Maitreya Muni just finishes in one line. So all you need to know in life are these 3 questions and answer to these 3 questions. 3 questions, 3 answers. That's all. And my voice is breaking or what? Hari bol.
Yes, Prabhu, it's breaking.
Now
Yes,
it's
Prabhuji, in between.
so then. So it's not okay. So what to do then?
The last 2-3 minutes is breaking. So maybe, yeah.
Now it's okay or what?
Maybe you want to switch off the video and try, Prabhu, or?
Okay, let me just switch off the video. So now,
Yeah.
now it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay, Prabhu. Now. But
Okay.
we'll tell you, Prabhu, if it is not okay.
Okay. So that's the whole point there. We don't need to know things in so much details. We need to know things in depth, and that's why there are 3 questions and 3 answers. That's it. This is all to spirituality. Rest of the chapter is religion and creation, questions pertaining to that, and those are the answers to those questions. Maitreya will be answering further. But now another question comes after discussing these spiritual questions. Why Vidura is interested in mundane questions like religion and creation? Why is he interested in that? Isn't it enough to understand who is Supreme Lord, who am I, how to do devotional service? That's simple, straightforward. Why Vidura is making things more complicated? Am I right? Devotee says like that, no? Why we have to simply chant and eat prasad and be happy? Why to understand so much complicated things? 99% devotees have this idea. But Vidura doesn't have this idea. Either Vidura is mad or those devotees are mad. Somebody has to be mad. Or Vidura is sensible or those devotees are sensible. Somebody has to be sensible. Of course, we know Vidura is a pure devotee. So then why is he interested in all these things? Why a major portion of Bhagavatam, especially 3rd canto and portion of 4th canto, are dedicated to cosmology and creation and the lineage of kings and devotees and the lineage of Manus and all these things? Why is that? But there is an important so Vidura is trying to make this point that spirituality we cannot be understood completely. It's very difficult to go in the depth. We were talking about depth of spirituality without understanding or without getting the religious sense, without understanding religion, without understanding creation. Our mind will not broaden, and a very narrow mind will not be able to actually even grasp and harmonize the principles of spirituality. It's very difficult. For a mind which is stunted, which is superficial, which is narrow and limited, it will not be able to grasp the broad concepts of spirituality. It's very difficult. So what does religion, understanding creation broadens the mind. So for example, so when you understand creation, you will understand time scales. There's Satyuga, which is like 4,032,000. Sorry, Kali Yuga 4,032,000 years. Dwapar Yuga twice that, Treta Yuga 3 times that, Satyuga 4 times that. You see, so such big time scales. So this is a one day of Brahma. So by understanding this, we will understand that by understanding things, we will understand that our what is the significance. By understanding such vast time scales, we understand who are we. We are nothing. We are a point in this, a flash in this time scale. We are nothing, and this helps us to actually free ourselves from false ego, and thus we will be able to do devotion nicely. So you see, I gave one example how understanding creation helps us to practice spirituality more effectively, and understanding religion helps us to practice spirituality much more better. Why? Because religion infuses in us moral qualities, good qualities, brahmanatva. And when there are good qualities in a mind is peaceful. And when a mind is peaceful, then we will be able to practice spirituality nicely. So you see the point. So there's a connection between understanding spirituality, understanding creation and religion. That's why Vidura is not wasting time on Maitreya. Vidura is not wasting time. Vidura is saying, well, Vidura knows why he's asking about creation and religion besides spirituality. So we have to understand all these things. Don't be fool, don't be sentimental that no, it's enough, we have to chant, we have to do kirtan and prasad and then do some service, and then that's enough. That's why we have to understand so complicated philosophy. Okay, don't understand complicated philosophy. If you don't understand complicated philosophy, then some complication your mind will think. You can't get rid of complications. Mind is habituated to think something complicated from millions of lives. So we have to give something complicated to it. Am I right? So if you don't understand complicated philosophy, then you will go into complicated politics. That's all. That's going to happen. All these devotees who say, no, keep it simple, their mind is completely messed up. They are thinking completely bizarre things. This devotee did this devotee did this thing, why this happens to me, all these things. They completely disturb devotees. I have seen that. Although they might fool themselves by saying, oh, actually, no, it's simple and everything is nice. No, everything is not nice. They don't advance nicely. So, it's not, I am saying this, Narottam Das Thakur, he obviously he might have read Bhagavatam and understood every verse, am I right? Or he skipped third canto because third canto is so complicated, let's forget it. Bhajahure mana Srinandan, he was a nonsense sentimentalist or what? All of pure devotees, they understood Bhagavatam, every verse nicely. No verse of Bhagavatam is useless rendition. Every verse has a purpose for helping us to advance in spirituality. It's not uselessly written by Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva has written in Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam Vyasadeva composed in full maturity. He didn't write a verse just because he found it very interesting. He wrote Bhagavatam with full maturity, full concentration, full deliberation, and each verse is infused with devotion, or it is leading us to pure devotion. That's how it happens. So this is what is spirituality all about. This is what is Canto 7 all about. So I think I'll stop here. Any questions? Any answers if you want to ask? Now you can read this verse, chapter, you will understand what I am saying. It's a small chapter, but I have given you the essence of this chapter. Okay, so anybody wants to ask any questions, I'll end up here. There's not much to say in this more. There can be details, but details you can read yourself. I've given you the essence, what is happening in this chapter, and what do we learn from this chapter. Okay, so anybody wants to ask anything? I'm done here.